Well, hello! First delivery in the new year, which was actually sent mid-December, but it didn't arrive for ages. And it looks like it was a little bit worse for wear. If you look at this box here, it looks like it got sat on, crushed both sides. Fortunately, the content is okay. This is the Diatone Tyrant S, a 215 size. And I felt, just to talk about it, I should also bring in the GT 200S, as there's a couple of things that are shared between them. But this is what the Tyrant S looks like. Now, Diatone generally has a really good array of spares in the box, so let's just have a quick look at what's in there. And it's pretty full up of stuff. We've got the little skew that goes on there. Got a huge amount of spare cables and things. Instructions for the frame, the flight controller and the VTX. Stickers, who doesn't like stickers? A few more spares, motor screws and some battery and camera straps. Generally speaking, we get all this amazing spec and stuff, and we get really poor props. I haven't had a good look at these yet. They look a little bit blunt nosy. We'll see. It's a little bit cheaper than the GT200S, although it's still quite a sort of premium quad. So I wanted to see if this was sort of a cut down version of the other one or something a little bit different. And so some things are similar, some things are different. Obviously stretch X versus this is more of an H. We've also got smaller motors. These are 2205 2300s. These ones are 2306 2450s. Now, one of my concerns, I mean, this is a really solid quad, really powerful, but my concern were how much it stripped the battery out. So are these motors too big? Maybe. So maybe this could go a bit better. The ESCs I think are the same. 30 amp BLHeli-S, so I'll be running D-Shot, no problem. They share the same flight controller, the Fury F3. The VTXs I think are slightly different. This one has the next model up, I think it's called the S3, this is the S2. There was a little bit of noise on the GT200S, so it'll be interesting to see how this works. My only slight cause of concern on this one was the camera. So it's a CMOS camera. I mean, we prefer CCD, it's not the end of the world. I was more concerned about the fact that it says it's a 3.6mm lens. Now, I had real problems landing this one, and this was supposed to be a 2.3mm lens. So we're going more narrow here, and I'd like to see much wider angle. But we'll have to check that out, see how it goes. Let's get this open though, because I need to put the receiver in, these plug and fly machines, and we can have a little bit more of a look what's inside there, because it seems to have, slightly different than normal, a whole sort of PCB plate on there rather than just the stack in the middle. Now, similar to the GT200S, although a different shape, they've gone with a single piece of 4mm thick carbon for the bottom plate, which is, it feels strong. And I kind of like this, they've embedded an XT60 right in there, so it's kind of all hidden away quite nicely. So this will be quite different. So of course the battery is going to go on top. I mean, you could put it underneath, but it's designed to go on top, and it's got your camera platform there. But yeah, let's get it open and see what's going on in there. So here we are with the top off, just to see what's inside there, and some really interesting things. You notice the flight controller is soft mounted, just sort of slightly squishy on these blue bits. I also found it quite interesting that you see we've got these little capacitors on every ESC. I wonder if that's there to sort out the noise, because the previous the GT200, as I said, we had a bit of noise on there, and I think we've got the previous version of the VTX which isn't supposed to be as good, so maybe that will sort it out. But as per usual, we've got a little cable in the box which will plug into here, where we can have S-Bus or PPO in there. I'll be using S-Bus, and I've got a little FreeSky XM Plus with, I think I've already flashed the RSSI there, so hopefully use that. I'll get it plugged in, put the top on, and then we'll see how it goes then. Okay, we are all built and ready to test. Few quick comments about this. You'll notice I've put the battery on it, just to illustrate one of the kind of weird things. Although it's quite nice to have this fixed XT60 here, it's kind of awkward to get the battery lead down if you've got it on. It's kind of like plug it in and then put it round, and it sort of sits slightly back, I think. But we'll see how that goes. I've obviously got the squashy silicon case for my, where'd it go? Replace GoPro Session, when I'm ready to go. I'll fly it first without it, see how it goes. Original props here, which don't look particularly nice, but I've got some Dow Cyclones here on standby if I need to swap them over. Now, I said I was going to fly this as it came, so I went into beta flight and I found that the board was running 316, and I thought that's a bit early. I'll have to update that. Now, quite interesting this one. I'm kind of glad I did it, just in case anybody else hits the problem. The firmware it was running was Fury F3, so obviously when I came to update it, I updated Fury F3, and then I found out that it wasn't recognising the OSD on board. So I found out that after 316, instead of using the Fury F3, you need to use the Fury F3 OSD. I put that in, the OSD's recognised OK. Must have been a split here, because the Fury F3 OSD firmware only became available from 3.2 onwards. So this is running 3.24 now, and that seems all set up OK. Nothing really happened on the setup, it's all default. All I did was twiddle the super rates up to 0.8 as per normal and change the OSD. So aside from adding the receiver and got the antennas up here, I've just put a bit of Velcro on to keep the LiPo on nicely. I may have forgot to mention that this does have an inboard beeper just under there somewhere, so there was no need to put an extra beeper on. That's all good. That's all configured, got my modes done. Just need to go and fly it. At the moment today it's windy and raining, so I just have to wait for that to clear. Hopefully this will be instantaneous to you, and as by magic we will now appear on the field. Hello, welcome to the field. Got the Diatone Tyrant S ready to fly. I'm in the small field here, which I normally think is a bit small for 5-inch quads, but it's still really blustery, and it's not pleasant having a face full of wind in the big field. And basically I'm protected by these trees, so we'll take this round here, see how it goes. So line of sight, quick hover, you know, so I've just got a sort of blank thing in for the GoPro at the moment, so let's see how it goes on the first flight before I put that in there. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Okay, quick hover time, here we go. Seems to have plenty of punch. Let's try one, shall we? Yeah, that works. Let's land it. So here we're off for the maiden, a little bit of a ropey takeoff. And I had to say, as soon as I took off, I thought, oh, perhaps I'm going to be okay here. This camera is acting okay in this light, but as soon as I turned the corner or tried to do a turn, it just felt weird. It's almost like it's not turning so much as just the landscape is going by. It feels zoomed in enough that it just the best way I can describe it is just really weird. It felt weird to me all the way round, and didn't give me any confidence in flying it because it was so not what I'm used to. It was really hard to judge things like how close am I to the floor, how quickly do I need to turn out, and the consequences to this is it's a very, very safe flight involving not much other than flying around in a few circles, really, I have to say. As far as the actual flying goes, it seems to do okay. It's a bit juddery, and I was wondering if I can put that down to the motors and the props, or the fact you're slightly zoomed in. Of course, if you ever have a camera and you zoom in and you try and hold that still, you'll know that it's quite difficult to not get it all sort of juddery, because it has to be even stiller. So any slight vibration will be exacerbated even more on this sort of zoomed in camera, which I think is at least part of the problem we've got here. But based on the fact it seemed to be flying okay, I thought let's bring it on in and we'll stick a GoPro on and we'll see how we do. So what we have here is the first GoPro flight, and rather than just show the GoPro footage, what I wanted to do is show the difference between the GoPro wide angle lens. This is on the original Session, so it's not got the ultra super wide, this is just regular wide, and the FPV camera. And we can also get a feel for what that does in terms of how juddery the footage might look, and of course the peripheral vision that you seem to lose on the FPV camera.
which I think is quite striking. You'll kind of get what I mean now about the zoom. You can see things coming up which go completely under the camera on the FPV footage, and this is why it's so weird for me, being more used to the angle I have on the GoPro footage, trying to get used to this zoomed in section. Now you could argue, of course, that that's something you'd get used to, but why would you want to? There's a whole lot of cameras based on much wider lenses, and that seems to work quite well. You'll see there that trying to do a manoeuvre, I was just going up trying to do an inverted yaw spin. I kind of got slightly lost in the air. I completely lost all my orientation and just had to come out of it because I couldn't figure it out. Okay, doesn't play bad. Let's try it with the Dow Cyclones, see if it's a bit better. So yeah, here we are on the Cyclone, a 50-45 props, I think, and it's a lot smoother. It's not quite there. There's just a couple of wobbles occasionally. You can hear it in the motor. It gives a sort of a little judder occasionally, which I think can be tuned out. So this made flying feel better, but I still couldn't get used to the camera. I'm still all over the place with my flying. At the end of the day, it turned out that the small field wasn't too bad because I wasn't going to do anything too outrageous because I couldn't really get a good feel for what I was actually doing, especially in those corners. You'll also notice that this field is horrendously waterlogged. It's like a marsh out there, so I really didn't want to put it on the floor, and happily that didn't happen. So I suppose what else I can mention is how well the VTX works. You'll see a little bit of noise on it, but I think those capacitors are working pretty well of making it fairly free of noise. I mean, I think it's better in this case than the 200S, which seemed to have a little bit more noise. And I feel performance-wise, we get a reasonable turn of speed, we get a nice powerful punch. It's a pretty good quad in those sort of terms. It's just the fact that I can't really see what I'm doing is really letting it down for me. And of course, in FPV, being able to see what you're doing and being able to feel like you're in control and you know where you are and you're flying nice is fairly important. So I think it's quite a big oversight camera-wise. It did get to the point where I had more batteries left, but I didn't really want to fly them. I felt I'd got as much as I could out of the quad, and I didn't want to fly it with this camera anymore. As simple as that.
So what do we think of this? Well, it flew okay. As soon as we got rid of these props, these made it all a bit bouncy and horrible, and the Cyclones were definitely a lot smoother. It wasn't without the odd little judder, but it wasn't bad, and a bit more tuning, or any tuning at all, as I didn't do any, would help out there. But the real big problem with this, and the real letdown, is this camera. I'm not quite sure why Diatone cheaped out quite so much here. I mean, I could live with the CMOS camera, it's not great, you push it into the light and everything turns dark. But the 3.6mm lens is just a bizarre thing. I've never flown anything more narrow than a 2.8, and these days 2.8 feels really hemmed in, with 2.5 more of the norm, and 2.3s and 2.1s more popular. So it really felt strange, and I don't know if it came across in the DVR footage, but when you go into the corners, it's kind of like it doesn't feel like you're turning, it feels like the landscape is sort of sweeping past like this, which is really odd, and I think it really lets the quad down. Of course, you could be saying, well, just swap the lens out, swap the camera out, but we shouldn't really need to. I mean, this is not a cheap quad, and I don't like to go on about prices because prices change on a day-to-day basis at these places, but this is $220 when I look today, which is not a cheap quad. It's a premium thing, and it should have premium parts. Conversely, if we look at the GT200 S, today it is on offer and it is $239. It's certainly not perfect. It needed a couple of little bits doing to it, and it sucks the batteries away, but it flies really nicely. It's super powerful and super fast, and it's just an all-round better quad. And at like $19 more, you'd go for this every time. And again, if you were considering spending this amount of money, because this is sort of premium range, I still think, for me anyway, that the Coppice one was the best of these ones. I really like this, although people do appreciate the raw power of the 200. But yeah, flawed. I mean, time permitting, I will try swapping the lens out of the camera if I get some, but that's a time permitting thing. If, you know, I'd prefer to play with the new toys that come in rather than come back and sort the old ones out. So there it is, the Diatone Tyrant S, kindly supplied by Banggood for review, so many thanks to them. And of course, if you want to check it out, there is a linky down below, and I'll also link to these two guys as my suggestions for what you might want to look at if you're in this sort of price range. But yeah, until next time, I will catch you later. Bye for now.